Lieutenant Alan Miller sat perfectly still at the round table in the main meeting room of the U.S. Constellation. Blue light from the battle map washed over the faces of 20 officers from 6 different species. All eyes were on Admiral Jorax, a tall blue-skinned Viridian with 4 arms, who pointed at different sections of the map as he spoke. "The Araxian fleet will approach from this sector," Admiral Jorax said, his voice deep and steady. "Our sensors show they have 30 warships, mostly medium cruisers with fighter support. Intelligence suggests they plan to attack the mining colony on Vega 6. Alan looked at the map without blinking. His hands were folded neatly on the table. He did not move, did not nod, did not take notes. Most importantly, he did not speak. Commander Peltic, a reptilian Zendari officer with green scales and yellow eyes, flicked her tongue in a sign of agreement. "Their formation is standard. We should position our ships here and here to create a defensive wall." "Agreed," said Chief Tactical Officer Nema Lux, a human woman with short black hair. "With our current numbers, we can match their firepower and protect the colony." Other officers shared their thoughts. They suggested small changes to the plan, asked questions about enemy weapons, and discussed how to best use their fighter squadrons. At every suggestion, Admiral Jorax would nod or ask for more details. The battle plan began to take shape. Throughout all this, Alan remained silent. Normally, he would have spoken up by now. Known for his unique human perspective and creative battle ideas, he usually asked at least 3 questions during these meetings. Today, he simply watched and listened. Captain Zorak, second in command of the fleet, noticed this strange behavior. As a Viridian who had worked with humans for 15 years, he had learned to read their body language. The way Alan sat, too still, too focused, was not normal. When humans went quiet like this, it often meant trouble. After 40 minutes, Admiral Jorax finished presenting the battle plan. "We will begin fleet movement in 6 hours. All ships should be in position by 800 tomorrow. Any final questions?" Heads turned toward Alan, expecting him to raise his hand. He did not. "Very well," Admiral Jorax said. "You have your orders. Dismissed." As officers filed out of the room, Captain Zorak approached Dr. Villani, the fleet's leading genopsychologist. "Did you notice Lieutenant Miller during the briefing?" he asked quietly. Dr. Villani nodded, her large purple eyes blinking slowly. The human did not speak. Highly unusual behavior for him. "In my experience," Captain Zorak said, "when a human like Miller goes silent, it means one of 2 things. Either they are ill, or they see something the rest of us have missed. Perhaps he finally learned proper military discipline," Dr. Villani suggested, adjusting her white medical coat. "Humans are known to be overly expressive." Captain Zorak watched as Alan left the room, walking slightly faster than normal. "No," he said, "when humans go quiet, that's when the universe should worry." In the hallway, Lieutenant Kate Pearson fell into step beside Alan. As the ship's communications specialist, she had worked with him for 3 years. "You're scaring people," she said. Alan glanced at her. "What do you mean? You didn't say a word in there. Not one question, not one suggestion. Zorak kept looking at you like you were about to explode." Alan checked to make sure no one was nearby, then leaned closer to Kate. "Meet me in my quarters in 1 hour. Bring Daniel from engineering. Don't tell anyone else." "What's going on?" Kate asked, concern clear in her voice. Alan's face was serious, his eyes dark with worry. "The Araxians aren't attacking the mining colony. That's just what they want us to think. This is something much bigger, and we're walking right into their trap." An hour later, Kate Pearson and Daniel Wade, the ship's chief engineer, arrived at Alan's quarters. They found him surrounded by glowing displays showing maps of space and ship movements. The small room was dark except for the blue light from the screens. "Close the door," Alan said without looking up. Daniel shut it behind them. "This better be good," Daniel said. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and hands rough from years of fixing engines. I'm supposed to be checking the shield generators right now. Ellen waved them closer. Look at this. These are the last 6 battles we've had with the Araxians. The main screen showed a series of star maps with colored dots showing where ships had been. Red for Araxian ships, blue for the Coalition fleet. What am I looking at? Kate asked, leaning forward. A pattern, Alan said. Everyone thinks the Araxians are losing, but look closer. Each time we fight them, they pull back in the same direction. Daniel crossed his arms. So, they're retreating to their own space. No, Alan said, pressing a button to overlay all 6 battle maps. They're leading us somewhere. Each battle pushes our fleet a little more toward this region. He pointed to an empty-looking area of space. The Kashan Void, Kate said. There's nothing out there, just dust and a few dead stars. Alan pulled up another screen. That's what everyone thinks. But on our last patrol, I ran some special scans. Look what I found. The new image showed a faint shape hidden in the radiation belt around a small star. It looked like a massive space station under construction. Daniel let out a low whistle. What is that thing? I think it's a super weapon, Alan said. And tomorrow's battle plan will put our entire fleet within its firing range. Kate's eyes widened. Why didn't you say something during the briefing? Because I need more proof, Alan said. And because I don't know who to trust. Daniel looked confused. What do you mean? The Araxians shouldn't know our patrol routes, Alan explained. Someone must be feeding them information, but I don't know who. Kate sat down on the edge of Alan's bed. So what's your plan? I need to get closer to that thing, scan it properly, Alan said. Then I can take the evidence to Admiral Jorax. How? Daniel asked. We can't just take a ship without permission. Alan smiled for the first time. Actually, we can. The scout ship Sparrow is scheduled for engine tests tomorrow morning. Daniel, you're in charge of those tests. Daniel nodded slowly. I could file a flight plan that takes us near the edge of the void. For testing purposes, of course. And I can handle communications, Kate added. Make sure no one asks too many questions. We'll need one more person, Alan said. Someone who knows Araxian technology. Dr. Laura Clark, Kate suggested. She's studied their tech for years. And she can keep a secret. Alan nodded. Perfect. Ask her to meet us in Shuttle Bay 3 at 500 hours. Tell her it's important. What if you're wrong? Daniel asked quietly. Then I'll look like a fool and probably lose my rank, Alan said. But if I'm right, and we do nothing, the entire Coalition fleet could be destroyed tomorrow. Just then, a message came through on the ship's system. Captain Zorak's voice filled the room. Lieutenant Miller, please report to my office immediately. The 3 of them exchanged worried looks. Did he find out what we're planning? Kate whispered. Alan shook his head. No way, but he noticed something was wrong during the briefing. Viridians are good at reading humans. What will you tell him? Daniel asked. Alan headed for the door. As little as possible. Get everything ready. If I'm not back in 2 hours, go without me. As the door closed behind him, Kate looked at Daniel. Do you think he's right about all this? Daniel stared at the image of the strange structure hidden in the radiation belt. I hope not. But in all the time I've known him, Alan's never been wrong about things like this. Captain Zorak's office was neat and simple. Unlike many Viridians, he preferred a plain space with few decorations. Only a small crystal from his homeworld sat on his desk. The captain stood by the window, looking out at the stars, all 4 of his arms behind his back. Lieutenant Miller, he said without turning, I have been watching you since you joined this fleet. Alan stood straight, trying to hide his worry. Yes, sir. Zorak turned to face him. In 3 years, you have never once remained silent during a tactical briefing. Today, you said nothing. Why? Alan hesitated. He didn't want to share his suspicions until he had proof, but he also knew that Viridians could often tell when humans were lying. "I noticed something unusual about the Araxian movements," he said carefully. "I'm still trying to understand what it means." "And you did not think this was worth mentioning during the briefing?" Zorak asked, his large eyes fixed on Alan's face. "I didn't want to raise concerns without evidence, sir." Zorak walked slowly around his desk. "Humans are not known for such caution. Especially you, Lieutenant." Alan said nothing, waiting. "What do you really think is happening, Miller?" Zorak asked, his voice softer now. Alan made a quick decision. "I believe the Araxians are leading us into a trap, sir. They want us to follow their fleet to a specific location." "What evidence do you have?" "A pattern in their retreat paths after each battle." "And?" Alan paused. "I detected something unusual in the Kashan void, a large structure hidden in a radiation belt." Zorak's forehands tightened into fists. "This is a serious claim, Lieutenant. Why didn't you bring this to me earlier?" "I was concerned about security, sir. The Araxians seem to know our patrol routes too well. I think someone in the Coalition might be sharing information with them." Zorak was silent for a long moment. Then he pressed a button on his desk. "Computer, engage privacy protocol. No recordings." The lights dimmed slightly as the room's recording devices shut down. "I have had similar concerns," Zorak admitted. "Two of our recent missions were compromised. I could not determine how." Alan felt a wave of relief. "Then you believe me?" "I believe that you believe what you're saying," Zorak replied. "But Admiral Jorax will require more than patterns and suspicions to change the battle plan." "I intend to get proof," Alan said. "With your permission, sir, I'd like to take the scout ship Sparrow near the edge of the Kashan void tomorrow, for engine tests." Zorak's expression didn't change. "Engine tests? I see. And who would go with you on these tests?" "Chief Engineer Wade, Communications Specialist Pearson, and Dr. Clark from Xenobiology." "A strange crew for engine tests," Zorak noted. "And if you find this structure, we'll scan it and return with the data before the fleet engages the Araxians." Zorak walked back to the window. "If you're right, Lieutenant, the entire Coalition fleet could be destroyed tomorrow. If you're wrong, you'll be diverting valuable resources during battle preparations." Alan waited, his heart beating fast. "Very well," Zorak said finally. "But I'm adding one of my officers to your crew. Lieutenant Mexera. She's a tactical specialist and will provide an objective view of your findings." Alan knew what this meant. Mexera would be watching them, reporting back to Zorak. "Thank you, sir." "The Sparrow will be ready at 500, Zorak said. "And Miller, if you find something, contact me directly. Not Admiral Jorax." "May I ask why, sir?" Zorak turned away. "Let's just say your concerns about security are not entirely unfounded." As Alan left the office, his mind raced. Captain Zorak had just confirmed his worst fears. The security breach went high up the chain of command, maybe all the way to Admiral Jorax himself. He needed to tell Kate and Daniel, and they needed to be very careful about what they said over the ship's communication systems from now on. The scout ship Sparrow was small but fast. With its sleek hull and advanced engines, it could outrun most Araxian patrol ships. That was important because it had almost no weapons. The Sparrow was built for speed and stealth, not fighting. At 500 hours, Alan arrived at Shuttle Bay 3. Kate, Daniel, and Dr. Laura Clark were already there. Laura was a quiet woman with a sharp mind who had studied Araxian technology for 7 years. "Captain Zorak approved our mission," Alan told them. "But he's sending one of his officers with us. Lieutenant Mexera. Can we trust her?" Kate asked. "We don't have a choice," Alan replied. "And maybe it's good to have someone who can back up what we find." They turned as the shuttle bay doors opened. Lieutenant Mexera walked in. She was a typical Viridian female, tall and blue-skinned with 4 arms, but her face seemed harder than most. She carried a small bag over her shoulder. "Lieutenant Miller," she said with a nod. "I understand we are performing engine tests today." Alan and his team exchanged quick glances. "That's right," Alan said. "Near the edge of the Kashan void. A strange place for tests," Mexera noted. Her voice was cool and professional. "The radiation there will help us check the shield systems too," Daniel explained quickly. Mexera said nothing more as they boarded the ship. Inside, each person went to their station. Daniel took engineering, Kate handled communications, Laura set up her scientific equipment, and Alan sat in the pilot's seat. Mexera stood behind him, watching everything. "Sparrow to flight control," Kate said into the comm, requesting permission to depart for scheduled engine tests. "Permission granted, Sparrow," came the reply. "Stay on your filed flight plan." The ship lifted off smoothly. Once they were clear of the constellation, Alan engaged the main engines. The Sparrow shot forward, stars streaking past the viewports. "Full speed to the Kashan void," Alan told the others. "We need to get there and back before the fleet moves against the Araxians." 2 hours later, they reached the edge of the void. It looked empty, just darkness with a few dim stars. Daniel reduced power to the engines. "Engaging stealth systems," he said. "We should be invisible to standard sensors now." Laura activated her special scanning equipment. "I'm searching for the structure Alan found. The radiation belt around that star system should be there." She pointed to a small dot on her screen. Alan turned the ship toward it. "How long until we're in scanning range?" 20 minutes at current speed," Laura said. Mexera stepped forward. "What exactly are we looking for, Lieutenant Miller?" Alan hesitated, then decided to tell the truth. "I believe the Araxians have built a super weapon in that system, something that could destroy our entire fleet in one blast." "That would require enormous power," Mexera said, her voice skeptical. "The system has a pulsar," Laura explained. "If they found a way to harness its energy." Mexera's expression changed. "That would change the balance of power in this entire sector." "Exactly," Alan said. "That's why we need proof." As they got closer, Laura's scanners began picking up more details. "I'm detecting a large structure in orbit around the third planet. Energy readings are enormous." She put the image on the main screen. They all stared at it in silence. The structure was massive, at least 10 times larger than anything the Araxians had built before. It looked like a huge ring with smaller rings inside it, all connected to energy collectors pointed at the system's pulsar. "That's definitely a weapon," Daniel said quietly. "And it looks almost operational," Laura added. Mexera's forehands tightened into fists. "We need to alert the fleet immediately." "Agreed," Alan said, turning to Kate. "Can you get a message through?" Kate tried the communication system. "There's heavy interference from the radiation belt. We'll need to move closer to the edge of the system." "Do it," Alan ordered, turning the ship. "We have to warn them before." Warning alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Daniel checked his screens. 3 Araxian patrol ships just appeared on sensors, he shouted. "They're heading straight for us." The Sparrow shook as the first shots from the Araxian patrol ships hit their shields. Alan grabbed the controls and pushed the engines to full power. "Evasive maneuvers," he shouted. "Daniel, give me everything you can from the engines." Daniel's fingers flew over his control panel, redirecting power from non-essential systems to engines and shields. "They're locking weapons again," Kate warned, looking at her screens. The ship rocked violently as another blast struck them. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. "Shields at 60%, Daniel reported. "We can't take many more hits like that." Alan spun the ship in a tight turn, diving beneath one of the Araxian vessels. "We need to get out of this radiation belt so we can send a message to the fleet." "Can we outrun them?" Laura asked, holding onto her station as the ship shook again. "The Sparrow is faster," Alan said, "but they have us surrounded." Mexera moved to the tactical station. Their formation has a weak point. If we fly directly at the lead ship, then make a sudden dive at the last moment, we might slip through. Alan looked at her with surprise. That's a very human suggestion. I've been studying your tactics, Mexera replied. Araxians don't expect irrational maneuvers. Let's do it, Alan decided. Everyone hold on tight. He aimed the Sparrow straight at the largest enemy ship. The Araxian vessel grew larger on their view screen, its weapons glowing as they charged for another shot. They're firing, Kate shouted. Not yet, Alan said, his hand steady on the controls. Lieutenant Miller, Mexera warned as the enemy ship filled their view. Now, Alan yelled, slamming the controls forward. The Sparrow plunged downward at full speed, barely missing the Araxian ship. The sudden move confused the enemy's targeting systems. Their shots went wide, missing the Sparrow completely. The small scout ship shot past the Araxian formation and raced toward the edge of the radiation belt. It worked, Daniel said, grinning. We're not safe yet, Alan cautioned. Kate, can you send a message to the fleet? Kate checked her communications panel. Still too much interference. We need to get farther from the radiation belt. The ship lurched suddenly. Red warning lights flashed across all control panels. Direct hit to our port engine, Daniel reported, his voice tense. We're losing power. Can you fix it? Alan asked. Daniel shook his head, not without shutting down. We need to land somewhere. Laura pointed to her screen. There's a small moon orbiting the fourth planet. It has a thin atmosphere, enough to mask our signature from their sensors. That's our best option, Alan agreed, changing course. Kate, prepare an emergency signal buoy with all our scan data. We'll launch it once we're hidden. As the Sparrow limped toward the moon, the Araxian ships continued their pursuit. With only one engine working properly, the scout ship was losing its speed advantage. They're gaining on us, Mexera warned. We're almost there, Alan said through gritted teeth. Just a little longer. The small moon grew larger on their view screen, a gray, cratered surface with thin wisps of atmosphere. Alan aimed for a deep crater on the dark side, away from the pulsar's light. Launching signal buoy, Kate announced, pressing a button. A small pod shot away from the Sparrow, heading in the opposite direction from their course. Good thinking, Alan said. That should draw them away. The trick worked. Two of the Araxian ships changed course to pursue the buoy, leaving only one still following the Sparrow. Entering the moon's atmosphere, Alan reported as the ship began to shake. It's going to be a rough landing. Everyone secure yourselves. The Sparrow's damaged engine sputtered and died completely as they descended toward the crater. Alan fought with the controls, using thrusters to slow their fall as much as possible. Impact in 10 seconds, he called out. The last thing they saw before hitting the surface was the remaining Araxian ship hovering above them, weapons ready. Alan woke up with a sharp pain in his head. The inside of the Sparrow was dark, lit only by a few emergency lights. Smoke filled the air, and he could hear the hiss of broken pipes. He tried to remember what had happened after they hit the moon's surface. The landing had been rough, but they had survived. Is everyone okay? He called out, unbuckling his safety harness. I'm here. Kate's voice came from nearby. She had a cut on her forehead, but seemed otherwise unhurt. Daniel groaned from his station. Engine control panel exploded. My arm is burned, but I'll live. Dr. Clark, Alan called. I'm fine, Laura answered, her voice shaky. Just bruised. Where's Lieutenant Mexera? They found the Viridian officer trapped under a fallen beam. Together, they managed to lift it off her. 2 of her 4 arms were injured, but she was conscious. Thank you, she said as they helped her up. What is our situation? Daniel checked what was left of his systems. Main engine is completely dead. Life support is running on backup power. Communications are offline. What about the Araxian ship? Alan asked. Kate looked at the external sensors. Still up there. They're scanning the area, looking for us. The crater walls and the thin atmosphere should hide us for now, Laura said. But they'll send down search parties soon. Alan thought quickly. We need to repair the communication system. The fleet needs to know about the superweapon. Even if we fix it, the Araxians will detect our signal and find us, Mexera pointed out. What about the signal buoy we launched? Laura asked. Did it get away? Kate checked her screen. It's moving fast, but the 2 Araxian ships are gaining on it. They'll catch it before it reaches clear space. Everyone was silent for a moment. Then Alan spoke. I have an idea. It's risky, but it might work. We're listening, Mexera said. Daniel, can you get the thrusters working? Not for flight, just short bursts. Daniel thought for a moment. Maybe. They weren't damaged as badly as the main engine. Good. And Laura, does your scanning equipment still work? Laura checked her station. Basic functions only, but yes. Perfect. Here's the plan. We use the thrusters to move deeper into the crater, where the walls are highest. Then we modify Laura's scanner to send a focused signal directly to the fleet. The crater walls will hide the signal from the Araxian ship above us. But the signal won't be strong enough to reach the fleet, Kate objected. It doesn't need to. Alan explained. We just need to reach Captain Zorak's ship. If we can get a message to him with our data on the superweapon, he can warn the rest of the fleet. Mexera nodded slowly. It could work. Captain Zorak's ship has enhanced communication systems, and he would believe our warning. They got to work quickly. Daniel rerouted power to the thrusters while Kate and Laura modified the scanner. Mexera used her remaining good arms to help Alan clear debris from the damaged ship. After 30 minutes, they were ready. Daniel fired the thrusters in short, controlled bursts, moving the damaged Sparrow deeper into the crater. Above them, the Araxian ship continued its search pattern, unaware of their movement. We're in position, Daniel announced. Laura activated her modified scanner. Signal ready. I focused it as narrowly as possible and encoded it with Viridian military protocols. Send it, Alan ordered. Laura pressed a button. Signal sent. Now we wait. How long until we know if it worked? Kate asked. Captain Zorak's ship should receive it in about 10 minutes. Mexera answered. If they received it, they'll send a response. Suddenly, a loud thud came from outside the ship. They all froze. What was that? Laura whispered. Alan looked at the external sensors. Araxian landing party. They found us. How many? Mexera asked. At least 6, Kate reported. And they're heading this way. Alan checked the ship's small weapons locker. We have 2 pulse pistols and a toolkit. Not much to fight with. We need to hold them off for 10 minutes, Mexera said, taking one of the pistols, just long enough to know if our message got through. They heard the sound of the Araxians trying to open the damaged hatch. Get ready, Alan said, gripping the other pistol. If we can't send another message, we need to make sure at least one of us survives to warn the fleet in person. The Araxians were at the door. Alan could hear them cutting through the damaged metal with some kind of tool. Sparks flew from the edges of the hatch. They'll be through in minutes, Kate whispered. We need to slow them down, Alan said. He looked at Daniel. What's in that toolkit? Daniel opened the metal box and quickly looked through it. Basic repair tools, some emergency flares, and a few canisters of sealant foam. Perfect, Alan said, grabbing the canisters. This foam hardens in seconds when exposed to air. If we spray it at them when they break through, it should buy us some time. Daniel nodded. Smart thinking. Alan positioned himself near the door with the foam canisters. Mexera stood beside him with one pulse pistol, while Kate took the other and guarded the back of the ship where there was a smaller emergency hatch. 5 minutes until we know if our message reached Captain Zorak, Laura reported, watching the timer on her scanner. The cutting sounds grew louder. The Araxians were almost through. Get ready, Alan told the others. With a loud screech, a section of the hatch fell inward. A clawed Araxian hand reached through the opening, followed by the barrel of an energy weapon. Now, Alan shouted. He sprayed the foam directly at the opening. It expanded rapidly, covering the Araxian's arm and weapon. The alien let out a strange hissing sound as it tried to pull back, but the foam hardened quickly, trapping its arm. It worked, Laura said. Not for long, Mexera warned. They'll just cut through a different part of the hull. She was right. The sounds of cutting tools moved to another section of the ship's wall. 3 minutes left, Laura announced. Daniel looked around desperately. We need a better plan. We can't hold them off forever. Ellen thought quickly. The emergency flares. How many do we have? Daniel checked the toolkit. 4. If we set them off inside the ship, the smoke and light might confuse them long enough for us to escape through the emergency hatch. Mexera nodded. And then what? We can't outrun them on foot. We don't need to, Alan said. We just need to reach those large rock formations we saw about 100 meters from here. The moon's strange mineral composition was interfering with their scanners. If we can hide there until help arrives. 1 minute left, Laura called out. The cutting sounds grew louder. Another section of the hull began to glow red from heat. Get ready with those flares, Alan told Daniel. Kate, prepare to open the emergency hatch on my signal. Everyone moved into position. The hull plate was starting to melt under the Araxian's cutting tools. 30 seconds, Laura said. The hull plate fell inward with a crash. The ugly reptilian face of an Araxian soldier appeared in the opening, its yellow eyes blinking in the dim light. Now, Alan shouted. Daniel lit all 4 flares at once and threw them toward the opening. Bright white light filled the ship, along with thick clouds of smoke. The Araxian soldiers hissed and backed away, momentarily blinded. Go, Alan ordered. Kate opened the emergency hatch, and they rushed out onto the moon's surface. The thin atmosphere made it hard to breathe, but they could survive for a short time without protection. This way, Alan called, leading them toward the rock formations. Behind them, Araxian soldiers poured out of the disabled Sparrow, firing energy weapons. The shots kicked up dust around their feet as they ran. Almost there, Daniel shouted. They reached the rocks just as Laura's scanner peaked. She looked down at it, her face lighting up. Message received. Captain Zorak acknowledged our warning. Did they get the data about the superwavon? Alan asked. Laura nodded. Yes, and they're sending ships to rescue us. A bolt of energy struck the rock next to Mexera's head. The Araxians were closing in. We still need to survive until they get here, Kate said, firing back with her pulse pistol. Take cover behind these rocks, Alan ordered. We'll have to hold them off. They spread out among the rocks, using them as shields against the Araxian weapons. The aliens advanced slowly, moving from one position to another. How long until help arrives? Daniel asked. Mexera checked her wrist device. Captain Zorak's ship is nearby. Less than 20 minutes. That's a long time to hold out against superior numbers, Kate said. Alan looked at his companions. We don't have a choice. The entire coalition fleet depends on us surviving to confirm our findings. An energy bolt struck just above his head, showering him with rock fragments. Any more bright ideas, Lieutenant? Mexera asked. Alan looked at the approaching Araxian soldiers. There were 8 of them now, spreading out to surround the rocks where his team was hiding. Their scaled bodies moved quickly despite the low gravity. The team's 2 pulse pistols wouldn't hold them off for long. I do have one more idea, Alan said to Mexera, but it's even crazier than the last one. I'm starting to like your crazy ideas, Mexera replied. What is it? Alan pointed to the small ridge above them. The moon's soil is full of metallic dust. That's why it interferes with scanners. If we can create a dust cloud. Daniel caught on quickly. It might blind their sensors and their eyes. Exactly. Laura, do you still have any power in your scanner? Laura checked her device. About 20% charge left. If we overload it, would it create an electromagnetic pulse? Laura thought for a moment. Yes, but it would fry all our equipment too. Better than being fried ourselves, Kate said as she fired another shot at an approaching Araxian. Do it, Alan decided. Daniel, help Laura modify the scanner. Kate and Mexara, keep them busy. I need to get to higher ground. While Laura and Daniel worked on the scanner, Alan carefully moved up the ridge, staying low to avoid Araxian fire. From his new position, he could see the Araxian ship hovering about half a kilometer away. But he could also see something else, a small shape moving fast through the thin clouds above them. Hurry with that scanner, Alan called down, and be ready to run when I give the signal. Laura finished the modifications. It's ready. When it overloads, we'll have about 5 seconds before the pulse. Throw it as far as you can toward the Araxians, Alan instructed. Laura nodded and threw the scanner. It landed between 2 Araxian soldiers who looked at it with confusion. Now run, Alan shouted, toward that large boulder to the north. The team broke cover and ran as the scanner began to make a high-pitched whine. The Araxians fired at them, but most shots went wide. Then the scanner exploded with a bright flash. The electromagnetic pulse sent the Araxian soldiers stumbling, their weapons and sensors suddenly dead. More importantly, it stirred up a huge cloud of metallic dust that sparkled in the pulsar's light. Keep going, Alan yelled as he slid down the ridge to join the others. They reached the large boulder just as the Araxians began to recover. But now the aliens were having trouble seeing through the swirling dust cloud. What now? Kate asked, breathing hard. We bought some time, but they'll still find us. Alan grinned. Look up. They all looked up to see a coalition shuttle breaking through the thin clouds, its weapons already firing at the Araxian ship. The alien vessel tried to respond, but the shuttle was too quick. After a brief exchange of fire, the Araxian ship's engines flared and it retreated toward space. The shuttle landed near their position, its ramp lowering quickly. Captain Zorak himself stood there, holding a weapon. Lieutenant Miller, he called. I should have known you'd cause this much trouble. They ran toward the shuttle as the Araxian soldiers, realizing they were outmatched, fell back. Your message saved the entire fleet, Zorak told them as they boarded. Admiral Jorax was leading us right into a trap. When I showed him your evidence, he had no choice but to change the battle plan. And the super weapon? Alan asked. The strike team is disabling it as we speak, Zorak replied. It seems the Araxians had a spy highly placed in our command structure. Who? Mexara asked. Commander Peltic, Zorak said. She's been arrested. The shuttle lifted off, leaving the moon behind. Through the viewport, they watched as a bright flash lit up the space near the pulsar. The Araxian superweapon had been destroyed. On the return journey to the fleet, Admiral Jorax himself contacted them. His large face filled the communication screen. Lieutenant Miller, he said formally, the Coalition owes you and your team a debt of gratitude. Your actions saved countless lives today. Alan nodded respectfully. Thank you, Admiral. But I'm curious, how did you know something was wrong? The Admiral's expression softened slightly. When a human is silent during a battle briefing, well, that was the first red flag. As the shuttle rejoined the fleet, Alan looked at his team, humans and alien alike. Together, they had uncovered a plot, escaped capture, and prevented a disaster. All because someone had noticed when a human, for once, didn't speak up. Next time, Kate said with a smile, try just raising your hand. Alan laughed. Where's the fun in that?